The Veth had conquered 1,000 worlds before they found Earth. They were the perfect hunters. 7 feet tall, with skin like black armor, eyes that could see heat through walls, claws that could tear through metal. For 10,000 years, they had traveled the galaxy looking for worthy prey. They found intelligent species, studied them, and then hunted them to extinction. It was their religion, their purpose, their joy. Every century, the Veth chose a new species for what they called the Grand Hunt. The rules were simple. They would announce themselves. They would give the prey time to run and hide. Then they would hunt every last one until none remained. 200 species had faced the Grand Hunt. None had survived in the year 2347. The Veth found humanity. Park Jun was sleeping when the war began. He was 43 years old, a simple man who had spent 20 years growing rice in the Korean countryside. The military had drafted him 5 years ago when Earth started building its space fleet. They said they needed every able body. Jun never wanted to be a soldier. He wanted to grow rice, marry a nice woman, and die peacefully in his bed. But fate had other plans. The alarm woke him at 3 in the morning. Red lights flashed. Sirens screamed. Jun ran to the bridge of his ship, the battleship Dokdo, still half asleep. "Captain," his first officer said. Her name was Yoon Sora, a young pilot with sharp eyes and a sharper tongue. 12 colony worlds just went dark. All of them. At the same time, Jun stared at the screen. 12 dots that had been green were now black. Millions of people. Gone in an instant. What happened? Before Sora could answer, every screen on the ship flickered. A face appeared. It was not human. The creature had no lips, just rows of small, sharp teeth. Its eyes were like black glass. When it spoke, the translator made its voice sound almost friendly. "Humans of Earth," the creature said. "I am Veth Prime Gorval, Supreme Hunter of the Dominion. Your species has been selected for the Grand Hunt. You have 90 cycles to prepare. Run if you wish. Hide if you can. Pray to whatever gods you believe in. It will not matter. When the hunt is complete, your species will exist only in our trophy halls. This is the way. This has always been the way." Ah! The transmission ended. Jun stood in silence. Around him, his crew was frozen with fear. Some were crying. Others were praying. A young officer vomited on the floor. Sora broke the silence. "Sir, what do we do?" Jun had no answer. He was a rice farmer. What did he know about fighting alien hunters who had killed 200 civilizations? The next 3 days were chaos. Earth's government fell apart. Leaders argued and blamed each other. Some wanted to surrender and beg for mercy. Others wanted to flee to distant stars. A few wanted to fight, but no one knew how. The Veth did not wait 90 cycles. They were hunters, and hunters were patient, but they were also eager. Their first real attack came on day 7. Jun watched Seoul burn from orbit. The city where he was born, where his parents had lived and died, where he had learned to walk and talk and love, was now a sea of fire. Veth dropships fell from the sky like black rain. Their soldiers marched through the streets, killing everything that moved. They were not just efficient, they were artistic. They arranged bodies in patterns. They took recordings to show their families back home. This was fun for them. Jun felt something break inside him. It was the part that was afraid, the part that wanted to run and hide. It shattered like old glass, and something else took its place. Something cold, something angry, something that whispered, "If we are going to die, we'll make them remember us." The human fleet gathered at the edge of the solar system. Only 11 ships remained from the original 50. The rest were debris floating in space. Jun looked at the faces on his screen. Captains and commanders from every nation. Korean, American, Chinese, Nigerian, Brazilian. It did not matter anymore. They were all just human now. They want prey, Jun said. His voice was calm. Too calm. They have hunted 200 species to extinction. They think we will be the same. Easy, fun. Another trophy for their walls. He paused. The faces watched him, waiting. My grandfather fought in a war, June continued. He told me stories about men who faced impossible enemies. Tanks against soldiers with rifles, bombs against farmers with shovels. They should have died. They should have surrendered. But they did not. They fought until their enemies were too tired to continue. They made victory so expensive that it was not worth winning. Sora spoke up. Captain, with respect, we have 11 ships. They have thousands. This is not the same. No, June agreed. It is not the same. Those were men fighting men. This is prey fighting predators. But there is something the Veth do not understand about prey. Some prey is too stubborn to die quietly. Some prey bites back. Some prey is poison. He looked at each face on the screen. Korean, American, Chinese, Nigerian, Brazilian, soldiers and scientists, old veterans and young recruits, all of them terrified. All of them still here. We will not win this war by being stronger, June said. We will win it by being more vicious than they can imagine. We will make them bleed for every planet. We will make them pay for every life. And when they finally kill the last human, they will look at the price they paid and wonder if we were worth it. Nobody spoke. Then a voice came through. It was Sergeant Kim Tyke, a grizzled old soldier with scars on his face and hate in his heart. His entire family had been on one of the 12 colonies. I am with you, Captain, Tyke said. Tell me where to fight, and I will fight. Tell me where to die, and I will die. But I will take as many of them with me as I can. Oh. One by one, the others agreed. It was not hope that moved them. Hope was dead. It was something older, something darker. The same thing that made wounded animals dangerous. The knowledge that if death was coming, they would not go alone. That night, the human resistance was born. They had no real plan. They had no real chance. But they had something the Veth had never faced before. Prey that refused to accept its role. The hunt had begun. But it would not end the way the Veth expected. 6 months passed, and humanity was dying. The Veth hunted humans across 3 star systems. They burned cities and laughed. They mounted human skulls on their ships like decorations. They sent recordings back to their home world, where billions of Veth watched and cheered like it was a sport. Because for them it was. But something strange was happening. Something the Veth did not expect. They were losing soldiers. Not many at first. A scout ship disappeared near Jupiter. A hunting party vanished in the ruins of Beijing. A supply convoy was found drifting in space, every Veth inside dead with their throats cut. Small losses. Almost nothing compared to the millions of humans they had killed, but losses in 10,000 years of hunting. The Veth had never lost this many warriors to prey. It made them curious. Then it made them angry. Then, slowly, it made them nervous. Dr. Lee Hanna was 31 years old and very tired. She had not slept properly in 4 months. She was hiding in a research station buried under the ice of Europa, one of Jupiter's moons. 50 scientists lived there, working day and night to find a way to hurt the VET. Hanna was a xenobiologist. She studied alien life. Before the war, she had spent her days looking at bacteria from Mars and dreaming about first contact. Now she spent her nights cutting open dead Veth bodies, searching for weaknesses. The Veth seemed perfect. Their black skin could stop bullets. Their bones were dense as steel. Their blood carried oxygen so efficiently that they could hold their breath for an hour. They healed from wounds that would kill any human. Every test Hanna ran ended in failure until she found it. It happened by accident. One of her assistants, a young man named Choi Do-an, was eating lunch while working. He was not supposed to eat in the lab, but everyone broke rules now. Rules did not matter when your species was dying. Do-an bit into a pepper, a very hot Korean pepper. His mother had grown in the station's small garden. A seed fell into the open chest cavity of a dead Veth. The tissue around the seed turned white and died. Hanna stared at it for a long moment. Then she ran to her computer. Then she started laughing. Then she started crying. Then she called Captain June. Capsaicin, she told him. The chemical that makes peppers hot, their respiratory system cannot handle it. If we can deliver it as a gas, as a weapon, it will blind them. It will burn their lungs. It will kill them. June was silent for a moment. You are telling me that we can defeat an empire that has destroyed 200 species? With hot peppers? Yes, Captain. Hot peppers. For the first time in 6 months, June laughed. Sergeant Kim Taek tested the weapon first. He had become the leader of what humans called the ghost units, small teams of soldiers who hid in the ruins of dead cities, waiting for Veth hunting parties. They used old tactics from old wars. Ambush, trap, hit, and run. Most of them died, but some of them survived, and they learned. Taek chose the ruins of Tokyo for the test. The city had been burned, but the underground tunnels still remained. He took 20 soldiers. They waited for 3 days without moving, barely breathing, eating cold rice, and drinking recycled water. On the 4th day, a Veth hunting party arrived. 12 warriors, armed and confident. Taek, let them get deep into the tunnels. Then he detonated the grenades. The grenades were simple. Metal cans filled with concentrated capsaicin powder. When they exploded, the powder became a cloud of invisible fire. The Veth walked into it without knowing. The screaming started immediately. Taek watched through his scope as 12 Veth warriors, each one capable of killing 100 humans, fell to their knees. They clawed at their faces. They tore at their own throats. Black blood poured from their mouths as their lungs burned from the inside. It took 4 minutes for all of them to die. Tae walked among the bodies. He kicked one to make sure it was dead. Then he picked up his radio. They bleed, he said. They scream. They die like anything else. The word spread quickly. Humans in hiding camps and underground bunkers heard the news. The Veth could be killed. Not easily, not safely. They could be killed. It was the first real hope humanity had felt in 6 months. Lieutenant Yoon Sora did not need hope. She ran on something darker. Her family had died on a new soul colony. Her parents, her little brother, her grandmother who had taught her to fly, all gone in the first attack. Sora had nothing left but her ship and her hatred. She became the leader of a squadron called the Ghosts. It's not the same as Taek's ghost units on the ground. These were pilots who flew stolen ships into the darkest parts of space. Asteroid fields, nebulae, anywhere the Veth felt safe. Duhun had become her engineer. He was young and brilliant and too skinny from not eating enough. He figured out how to take Veth engines and put them in human ships. Now Sora's fighters were faster than anything the enemy had seen. They painted their ships black. They attacked at night. They hit supply lines and communication stations. They killed and vanished before the Veth could respond. The first time Sora destroyed a Veth patrol ship, she felt nothing. The second time, she felt nothing. The 20th time, she finally smiled. They called themselves predators, she said to her squadron after a successful raid. They think we are animals, helpless, weak. But they forgot something important about animals. What is that? Doan asked. A cornered animal is the most dangerous thing in the world. It has nothing to lose. It has no fear. It will fight until its last breath, because running is not an option anymore. She looked at her pilots. They were tired, hungry, scarred from battles that should have killed them. But their eyes were bright. With something that the Veth had never seen in prey before, purpose, far away in his command ship, Veth Prime Gorval received another report of losses. Another patrol gone. Another supply line cut. He studied the data with growing concern. This prey was different. They did not run. They did not hide and wait for death. They studied. They adapted. For the first time in his long life, Gorval felt something strange. A cold feeling in his stomach, a weight on his shoulders. He did not recognize it yet, but the feeling had a name: fear. Fear. 1 year after the invasion, the Veth controlled most of human space. But their advance had stopped. Veth Prime Gorval stood in his trophy room and stared at the wall. In 10,000 years, his people had filled this room with skulls from 200 species. Each skull was a victory. Each skull was proof that the Veth were the greatest hunters in the galaxy. But something was wrong. The human section of the wall was growing slowly, too slowly. They should have finished this hunt in 6 months. That was the usual time. Some species lasted only weeks. The longest had lasted 9 months before the end. Humans had survived a full year. They were not just surviving, they were fighting back. Gorval had lost more warriors in this single hunt than in the previous 20 hunts combined. His supply lines were constantly attacked. His scouts disappeared. His soldiers reported something they had never reported before. They were afraid to go on patrol. The prey was hunting the hunters, Captain. Park Jun stood on the bridge of the Dokdo and looked at a holographic map. The blue dots were human forces. The red dots were Veth. There were many more red dots, but the blue dots were growing. In the past year, humanity had learned to fight. They had found the Veth weakness. They had trained thousands of soldiers in new tactics. They had built weapons that the Veth had never seen. Most importantly, they had found hope. "We cannot keep defending," June said to his officers. Sora was there. Tyke was there on video link. Doan was there, covered in grease from the engine room. Even Hannah had come, though she preferred her laboratory to the bridge. "We need to attack," June continued. "Something big.
Ow.
Something that will hurt them so badly they will have to stop and think." "What do you suggest?" Sora asked. June pointed at the map. There was a large red dot near the Proxima system. "This is their forward command station. It controls all their operations in human space. If we destroy it, their fleet will be blind and confused for months." Tyke studied the station. "That thing is heavily defended. Thousands of Veth soldiers, dozens of warships, shield generators that can stop a nuclear bomb." "Yes," June agreed. "Our analysts say we have a 6% chance of success." Silence filled the room. 6%. That meant 94% chance of dying for nothing, so Ross spoke first. 6% is not zero. June nodded. Our ancestors survived ice ages with nothing but stone tools. They survived plagues that killed half the world. They survived wars that burned entire continents. They did not survive because they were strong. They survived because they refused to give up. He looked at each of them. "We are the descendants of everyone who ever refused to die quietly. The Veth picked the wrong species. It is time we reminded them of that." The Battle of Proxima Station began at midnight, Earth Standard Time. The human fleet arrived in 3 waves. The first wave was made of old cargo ships filled with explosives. They were crewed by volunteers who knew they would not return. They flew straight at the Veth defense line, drawing fire, creating chaos. 90% of them died in the first 10 minutes, but they created an opening. The second wave was Sora's Ghost Squadron. 50 small fighters, painted black, flying faster than anything the Veth had seen. They slipped through the gap in the defense line and headed straight for the station's shield generator. Sora flew at the front. Her hands were steady. Her heart was calm. She thought about her family, her parents who had taught her to be brave, her little brother who had wanted to be a pilot like her grandmother who had told her stories about old Korea, about warriors who faced impossible odds and never surrendered. "I am coming," she whispered. "Wait for me a little longer." The shield generator was a massive tower on the top of the station. It was protected by 100 guns. Sora watched her pilots die around her, one by one, as they flew into the wall of fire. 20 made it through. Then 10, then 5. Then only Sora. She aimed her ship at the generator. At the last second, she pressed the eject button. Her seat flew into space as her fighter crashed into the tower. The explosion lit up the sky like a new sun. The shields went down. The third wave was the ground assault. Tyke led 300 soldiers in drop pods. They crashed through the station's hull like bullets through paper. Inside, they found thousands of Veth warriors waiting for them. The fighting was brutal. Tyke lost half his soldiers in the first hour, but they kept pushing. They used capsaicin grenades to clear rooms, used captured Veth weapons to fight back. They moved like water, flowing around obstacles, never stopping, never retreating. Above them, the Dokdo fought the Veth warships alone. June stood on the bridge as his ship took hit after hit. The hull temperature rose to 800 degrees. Fires broke out on every deck. Officers died at their stations. "Should we retreat?" his first officer asked. "No," June said. "Hold position. Give Tyke more time." The battle lasted 18 hours. When it ended, the station was a burning wreck. 200 human soldiers walked out of the ruins. 300 had gone in. Sora floated in space for 6 hours before a rescue ship found her. She was unconscious, frozen, barely alive. But she was alive. June looked at the burning station and allowed himself one small smile. They had done it. They had destroyed the Veth command hub. The enemy fleet would be confused and uncoordinated for months. More importantly, they had sent a message. Not just to the Veth, but to the whole galaxy. Humanity was not prey. Humanity was a predator that had learned to pretend to be prey. Now, the mask was coming off. Far away, Gorval received the news. Proxima Station was gone. Thousands of his best warriors were dead. The Grand Hunt was officially behind schedule for the first time in 300 years. He sat in his command chair for a long time, staring at nothing. The humans had done the impossible. They had hurt him. Really hurt him. And they were not stopping. For the first time in his life, Gorval considered something unthinkable. What if the Veth could not win this hunt? He pushed the thought away. It was impossible. Veth had never failed. They would not fail now. But the thought came back, again and again, like a wound that would not heal. The hunters were learning what it meant to be hunted. 2 years after the invasion, everything changed. The humans were no longer running. They were attacking. Captain Park Jun had united all the scattered human fleets into one force. He called it the Reclamation Armada. It was not a pretty name, but it was accurate. They were going to take back everything the Veth had stolen. The first target was New Sol. It's a colony where Sora had lost her family. It took 3 days to break through the Veth defenses. It took another week to hunt down every enemy soldier hiding in the ruins. When it was done, human survivors crawled out of basements and caves. Where they had hidden for 2 years, they had lived on rats and rainwater. They had watched their friends get taken. They had given up hope 100 times, but they had not given up life. Sora walked through the ruins of her old neighborhood. The house where she had grown up was gone. Just a pile of broken stone? She found a small toy buried in the dirt. It had belonged to her brother. She held it for a long time. Then she put it in her pocket and went back to her ship. There was more work to do, one by one. The human fleet took back the colonies. Each victory brought new soldiers. Some were trained fighters who had been hiding in the wilderness. Others were farmers and teachers who had never held a weapon. It did not matter. Everyone learned Dr. Lee Hanna had been busy. Her laboratory on Europa had grown into a massive research center. Hundreds of scientists worked there now, developing new ways to hurt the Veth. The capsaicin weapons were just the beginning. Hanna had created biological weapons that targeted Veth genetics specifically. Viruses that would not harm humans, but would destroy Veth lungs. Bacteria that would eat through their armored skin. Parasites that would drive them mad. But her greatest creation was something else. She called it the sterility plague. It would not kill the Veth. It would do something worse. Any Veth who breathed it would become unable to have children. Their species would slowly die out over generations. When Hanna presented this weapon to June, he was silent for a long time. This could end their species, he finally said. Yes, Hanna agreed. But we can give them a choice. Leave our space, and they will never be exposed. Stay, and their future dies with them. June thought about all the humans who had died. 8 billion on Earth. Millions more on the colonies. Children who would never grow up. Parents who would never see their families again. He thought about the Veth trophy walls, covered in the skulls of 200 extinct species. Do it, he said. Engineer Choi Doan had also been busy. He had reverse-engineered every piece of Veth technology he could find. Their shields. Their weapons. Their engines. He understood them now. Better than the Veth understood themselves. His greatest achievement was the Ghost Virus. It was a program that could infect Veth ship computers. Once inside, it would wait. It would learn. And then, at the worst possible moment, it would turn the ship against its crew. The first test came during the Battle of Kepler Station. A Veth carrier was leading the defense. Doan sent the Ghost Virus through a captured communication signal. 20 minutes later, the carrier's own guns started firing at its sister ships. The Veth captain tried everything. He shut down the computers. He sent soldiers to manually control the weapons. Nothing worked. The ghost virus had spread too deep. It was everywhere. The carrier destroyed 3 Veth warships before someone managed to overload the reactor and blow it up. Duhan watched the explosion from the Docto's bridge. He did not smile. He just nodded and went back to work. There was always more work across the galaxy. Other species were watching. The Olvari were an old civilization. They had seen empires rise and fall. They had watched the Veth hunt for thousands of years, always from a safe distance. When the humans asked for help at the start of the war, the Olvari refused. They did not want to make enemies. Now, the Olvari matriarch, a wise being named Selen, was worried. Her advisors brought her reports every day. The Veth were losing. Not just battles, but entire systems. The humans were pushing them back, step by step. It was unprecedented. No prey had ever done this. Selen sent a diplomat to meet with Captain June. The meeting happened on a neutral station, far from the fighting. The Veth will never accept defeat, Selen said through her diplomat. They will call reinforcements from their home systems. The full might of the Dominion will crush you. June listened politely. Then he spoke. We are not trying to defeat the Dominion, he said. We do not need to. We only need to make them understand one thing. What is that? That hunting humanity costs too much. We are too vicious, too stubborn, too willing to destroy everything, including ourselves, to hurt them back. Some prey is not worth hunting. We will make sure the whole galaxy remembers that lesson for 1,000 years. The diplomat reported this back to Selen. She thought about it for many days. These humans were strange creatures. Soft bodies, short lives, weak compared to most species, but there was something inside them. Something that did not break. Something that got stronger when you tried to crush it. Selen decided to wait and see what happened. But she also started preparing. If the humans won, the galaxy would change forever. The Olvari needed to be ready. The final offensive began in the spring of Earth's calendar. Sergeant Kim Tyke commanded 50,000 ground soldiers now. Every one of them was a survivor. Every one of them had lost someone. They were not an army. They were a vengeance. Lieutenant Yunsora commanded a carrier group of 200 ships. Her pilots called her the Ghost Admiral. She never slept more than 4 hours a night. She never smiled. But when she gave orders, everyone obeyed without question. Hannah and Doan worked together now. She made the weapons. He delivered them. They were a perfect team of destruction, and June watched over all of them. The rice farmer who had become a war leader, he did not enjoy fighting. He did not enjoy killing. But he understood that some things must be done no matter how ugly they are. The Veth Empire was cracking. Their warriors were dying. Their ships were failing. Their commanders were making mistakes. The hunters had become the hunted. And there was no escape. 3 years after the invasion began, Veth Prime Gorval stood on the bridge of his flagship and watched his empire die. His ship, the Eternal Hunter, was the last Veth vessel in human space. It drifted alone in the darkness between stars, its engines damaged, its shields failing. Around it, 400 human warships waited like wolves around a wounded animal. Gorval was old. He had lived for 300 years. He had led 1,000 hunts. He had killed with his own hands and watched species disappear forever. He had never known defeat. He had never imagined it. Now he tasted it. It was bitter. His crew looked at him with empty eyes. They were the last of his warriors. 500 soldiers who had survived 3 years of hunting and being hunted. They were tired. They were broken. They had seen things that no Veth should ever see. They had seen their own people run from prey. Communication signal came through. Gorval knew who it was before the face appeared on screen. Captain Park June looked different than the recordings from 3 years ago. His hair had gone gray. His face had new lines and scars. But his eyes were the same, calm, determined, unbreakable. Veth Prime Gorval, June said. You know why I'm calling? To accept my surrender, Gorval replied. The words hurt. They hurt more than any wound. Yes. And if I refuse? June's expression did not change. Then we destroy your ship. Then we use the navigation data we captured to find your homeworld. Then we bring the war to your people. We have weapons that can sterilize planets. We have viruses that can end your species in 3 generations. We have nothing left to lose and everything to gain. Gorval knew it was not a bluff. He had learned that about humans. They did not bluff. They made promises and kept them, no matter the cost. What are your terms? He asked. Unconditional withdrawal from all human space. Public acknowledgement that humanity is not prey. Reparations for every life taken, every world destroyed. Your trophy walls will be emptied. Every human skull will be returned for proper burial. And if we refuse any of these terms, then there will be no terms. Only war. We will follow you across the galaxy. We will hunt you the way you hunted us. We will not stop until your civilization is a memory and your children tell stories about the prey that ate the predators. Gorval closed his eyes. He thought about his ancestors, the great hunters who had built the Dominion. He thought about what they would say if they could see him now. They would be ashamed. They would tell him to die fighting, but Gorval had learned something in 3 years of war. Something that changed everything. Honor was meaningless. If your species was dead, greed. He said, the Treaty of Soul was signed aboard the Docto 3 days later. June hosted the ceremony on the same bridge where he had watched Soul burn 3 years ago. The walls were still scarred from battle. The floor still had stains that would not come out. It was not a pretty place, but it was real. It was honest. It was human. Representatives from 12 alien species attended as witnesses. They came from civilizations that had watched the war from a safe distance, doing nothing, saying nothing. Now they stood in uncomfortable silence as history happened in front of them. Matriarch Selin of the Alvari was there. She looked at the humans with new eyes. These creatures had done the impossible. They had broken the Veth. They had proven that the natural order of the galaxy was not as natural as everyone thought. Gorval signed the treaty with a hand that did not shake. He had too much pride for that. But his eyes were empty. He was already dead inside. Only his body remained. When it was done, he looked at June one last time. We have won, Gorval said. But do you understand what you have done? You have broken a 10,000-year tradition. You have shown the galaxy that prey can defeat predators. Nothing will ever be the same. June nodded. That is exactly what we intended. Gorval turned and walked away. He would return to his homeworld and face the shame of his people. He would be remembered as the hunter who lost to prey. It was worse than death, but it was also survival. And survival, Gorval had learned, was worth more than honor. The war was over in the years that followed. Humanity rebuilt. Captain Park June retired to Korea. He bought land near the ruins of Seoul and planted rice again. Sometimes he stood in his fields at night and looked at the stars. He thought about everyone who had died. He thought about everyone who had survived. He wondered if he had done the right thing. He never found a clear answer. But the rice grew well, and that was enough. Sergeant Kim Taek opened a school for children who had lost their parents in the war. There were thousands of them. Too many for one school. But he started with 1, and then there were 2, and then 10. He taught them how to fight. He also taught them how to heal. Both were important. Lieutenant Yoon Sora became the first human ambassador to the Olvari. She spent her days negotiating treaties and building alliances. At night, she still dreamed about flying. She kept her brother's toy on her desk, next to a picture of her family. Some wounds never healed. But they could be lived with. Engineer Choi Doan led humanity's first expedition beyond the edge of the galaxy. He wanted to see what was out there. He wanted to find new technologies, new species, new possibilities. He was still too skinny and still forgot to eat. But he was happy. Dr. Lee Hanna received 3 Nobel Prizes for her work in xenobiology. She used the money to build research stations across human space. She never made weapons again. She focused on medicine instead. Cures for diseases that had killed millions. Treatments that extended human life by decades. She had done terrible things during the war. Things that still gave her nightmares. But she tried to balance them with good things. It was all anyone could do. The story of humanity spread across the galaxy. It was told in 1,000 languages, on 1,000,000 worlds. The details changed, but the core remained the same. There was a species of soft, fragile creatures on the edge of the Orion Arm. They looked weak. They seemed harmless. The greatest hunters in the galaxy chose them as prey. It was the worst mistake anyone had ever made. The hunters were destroyed. The prey survived, and the galaxy learned a lesson that would never be forgotten. Some animals are not meant to be hunted. Some prey fights back. Some prey is more dangerous than any predator. Humanity was that prey, and they were just getting started. On distant worlds. In hidden places, young aliens grew up hearing stories about the humans. They learned to respect them. They learned to fear them. They learned that some wars should never be started. And in the darkness between stars, the human ships flew on, watching, waiting. Ready, the hunt was over. But humanity would never be prey again.